My beloved brothers and sisters, when someone hurts you, the first urge is often to react, to explain your pain, defend yourself, or prove them wrong. But Islam teaches us a deeper strength. Not every response needs words. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any argument, and dignity leaves a mark that noise never could. The people who hurt you often expect a reaction. They expect emotion, chaos, or confrontation. But when you choose calm over conflict and restraint over retaliation, something shifts. Your silence unsettles them, not because you are playing games, but because you are no longer feeding the situation with your energy. This reminder is about quiet strength, the kind that protects your heart, preserves your dignity, and leaves others reflecting on their actions. These are not behaviors rooted in ego or revenge, but in self-respect, wisdom, and trust in Allah. When you move with silence and character, Allah handles the rest. You stop explaining yourself. One of the most powerful shifts a believer makes after being hurt is deciding to stop explaining themselves. Explaining often comes from the hope of being understood, validated, or believed. But Islam teaches us that not every heart is meant to understand you, and not every ear is meant to hear your truth. When you constantly explain yourself, you place your peace in the hands of people who may never intend to give it back. Allah did not command you to convince everyone. He commanded you to walk with sincerity. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your emotional energy. You stop reopening wounds just to make others comfortable. This does not mean you become rude or distant. It means you become selective and wise. Allah already knows your intentions, your struggles, and your truth. That knowledge alone is enough. Silence becomes a form of trust, and trust brings peace to the heart. Many people hurt themselves more after the wound by trying to explain it away. They revisit the pain repeatedly, hoping their words will change how others see them. But often, explanations only invite judgment, debate, or denial. Islam protects the believer from this cycle. When you stop explaining yourself, you break free from emotional dependence on people's opinions. You accept that misunderstanding does not reduce your worth. Allah never measures your value by how well others comprehend your choices. He measures it by sincerity and faith. This realization brings relief. The heart stops striving for approval and starts resting in certainty. You move forward lighter, no longer burdened by the need to clarify every step of your journey. Stopping explanations is not silence born from fear. It is silence born from strength. Fear explains, strength trusts. The believer who trusts Allah knows that truth does not need constant defense. Over time, actions speak louder than explanations ever could. Character reveals what words cannot. Islam teaches us that dignity is preserved, not by arguing, but by consistency. When you stop explaining yourself, you allow your character to speak naturally. Those who are sincere will understand without effort. Those who are not were never meant to be convinced. This understanding saves the heart from exhaustion and protects Iman from unnecessary strain. Often, explanations are driven by the ego's desire to be right. But faith teaches us to let go of that desire. Being right in Allah's sight is more important than being right in people's eyes. When you stop explaining yourself, you free your heart from competition and defensiveness. You no longer feel attacked by misunderstanding. You accept it as part of life. This acceptance is powerful. It transforms pain into calm and confusion into clarity. Allah loves hearts that are settled, not constantly agitated by the need to justify themselves. The Prophet ﷺ was misunderstood more than anyone. Yet, he did not chase people to explain himself endlessly. He conveyed the message and trusted Allah with the outcome. This prophetic example teaches us restraint. Explaining has its place, but constant defense weakens the soul. Islam values balance. When explanation becomes harmful, silence becomes wisdom. The believer learns to recognize this line. When crossed, they step back without resentment. This restraint reflects maturity in faith. Stopping explanations also protects your healing. Healing requires space. Every explanation reopens the wound, forcing the heart to relive what should be left behind. Islam encourages moving forward with dignity. When you stop explaining yourself, you allow healing to happen quietly. Time, prayer and reflection do their work. Allah replaces pain with understanding, not through words, but through growth. This growth is gentle and lasting. Some people will accuse you of being cold or distant when you stop explaining. But Islam teaches us that boundaries are not cruelty. They are protection. You are not obligated to expose your inner world to everyone. Allah values privacy because privacy preserves peace. When you stop explaining yourself, you decide who deserves access to your story. This decision is not arrogance. It is wisdom guided by faith. Stopping explanations also teaches self-respect. You realize that your life does not require constant narration. You are allowed to exist without commentary. This realization is freeing. The heart becomes calmer, less reactive and more grounded. Allah does not want His servants living in emotional defense mode. He wants them standing firm with trust in Him. When explanations end, reliance on Allah increases. You stop turning to people for reassurance and start turning to prayer. Dua replaces debate. Remembrance replaces justification. This shift strengthens Iman deeply. The believer feels closer to Allah because they are no longer distracted by people's perceptions. This closeness brings peace no explanation could provide. Stopping explanations also prevents regret. Words spoken in defense often return as regret later. Silence avoids this. It keeps your record clean and your conscience clear. Islam values restraint because restraint protects both dunya and akhirah. The believer who restrains themselves gains control over their tongue and heart. This control is strength. As you stop explaining yourself, you notice a change in how you move through life. You become quieter, not weaker, calmer, not detached. Your presence carries confidence because it is not seeking validation. This confidence is rooted in faith. Allah supports those who rely on Him rather than on people's understanding. In the end, stopping explanations is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about anchoring yourself in Allah. You accept that being misunderstood is part of the journey, but being at peace is a choice. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop bleeding for clarity and start healing with trust. And that choice brings dignity, strength, and a peace that words could never give. You maintain dignified silence. Maintaining dignified silence is one of the most misunderstood strengths in Islam. Many people assume that silence means surrender, fear, or weakness, but dignified silence is none of these. It is a conscious decision to protect the heart from unnecessary harm. When you are wronged, mocked, or misunderstood, silence becomes a form of self-respect. You are not ignoring the pain, you are choosing not to add chaos to it. Islam teaches us that honor is preserved through restraint, not noise. A believer who maintains dignified silence does not rush to explain, defend, or retaliate. They trust that Allah sees what others distort and knows what others deny. This trust settles the heart. It removes the urgency to prove anything. Silence becomes a shield, guarding dignity when emotions are high and clarity is low. That calm presence itself becomes a statement stronger than words. Dignified silence is not emotional suppression. It is emotional mastery. The believer acknowledges hurt internally but refuses to let it dictate behavior. This mastery is a form of sabr that Islam praises. Reacting loudly often gives power to the one who caused the pain. Silence quietly takes that power back. It communicates that your peace is not available for misuse. When someone expects a reaction and receives calm instead, the dynamic shifts. The believer remains centered while the situation loses its grip. This composure reflects inner strength rooted in faith. Allah loves those who restrain themselves, especially when they are capable of reacting. That restraint is not accidental. It is cultivated through remembrance, prayer, and trust in divine justice. Maintaining dignified silence also preserves character. Words spoken in pain often damage reputation, relationships, and self-respect. Silence prevents these outcomes. It protects you from saying something that may satisfy the ego briefly but burden the soul later. Islam values foresight. Dignified silence looks beyond the moment and considers consequences. It chooses peace over pride and wisdom over impulse. The believer understands that not every truth needs to be spoken immediately and not every wrong needs to be corrected publicly. Allah's timing is more precise than human urgency. When you trust that timing, silence becomes easier and more meaningful. The Prophet ﷺ demonstrated dignified silence repeatedly. He endured insults, false accusations and mockery without reacting impulsively. His silence was never emptiness, it was depth. It carried patience, confidence and reliance on Allah. This prophetic example teaches us that dignity is preserved when the heart remains anchored in faith. Silence allowed the Prophet ﷺ to focus on his mission rather than distractions. Similarly, the believer who maintains dignified silence protects their purpose. They do not allow hurt to derail growth. Their energy remains directed toward what benefits the soul rather than feeding conflict. Dignified silence also prevents escalation. Many conflicts grow not because of the initial harm, but because of how it is answered. One reaction invites another, and the cycle continues. Silence breaks this cycle. It removes fuel from the fire. Islam encourages believers to stop harm at its root, not spread it further. When silence replaces reaction, tension fades. Even if others continue, the believer remains steady. This steadiness often forces reflection in those who expected confrontation. Silence becomes a mirror, revealing behavior without accusation. Allah uses this quiet restraint to teach lessons words could never deliver. Maintaining dignified silence does not mean abandoning boundaries. Silence and boundaries can exist together. You may choose not to argue, but you also choose not to engage. You step back with calm clarity. Islam allows distance when closeness causes harm. Silence supports this distance without hostility. It communicates finality without bitterness. The believer does not need to announce boundaries loudly. Consistency makes them clear. This approach preserves relationships where possible and protects peace where necessary. Allah rewards those who act with balance rather than extremes. Silence also protects sincerity. When you speak too much, intentions can become mixed. You may begin speaking to be validated rather than to please Allah. Dignified silence removes this temptation. It redirects the heart toward Allah alone. The believer stops seeking understanding from people and starts trusting Allah's complete knowledge. This redirection strengthens Iman. A heart aligned with Allah does not panic when misunderstood. It rests in certainty. Silence becomes a spiritual anchor rather than a social tactic. Dignified silence teaches patience in a world that demands instant reaction. This patience refines the soul. It trains the believer to pause, reflect, and choose wisely. Over time, this practice reshapes character. The believer becomes less reactive and more observant. They listen more and speak less. This awareness deepens wisdom. Allah grants wisdom to those who restrain themselves. Silence creates space for that wisdom to grow. Maintaining dignified silence also preserves mental and emotional health. Constantly defending oneself is exhausting. It keeps wounds open and prevents healing. Silence allows the heart to rest. Rest restores clarity. Clarity strengthens faith. Islam values the well-being of the believer because a healthy heart worships better. When peace is protected, prayer becomes focused, remembrance becomes sincere, and trust becomes deeper. Silence supports all of this quietly. Some may misinterpret dignified silence as indifference, but Allah judges by intention, not perception. When silence is chosen for peace and faith, Allah records it as wisdom. People's assumptions do not reduce its value. The believer learns to live without managing everyone's opinion. This freedom is powerful. It removes anxiety and replaces it with calm reliance on Allah. Dignity thrives in this freedom. Over time, dignified silence builds confidence. The believer no longer feels the need to explain or justify themselves. Their presence becomes calm and assured. This confidence is not arrogance, it is trust. Trust that Allah will handle what they release. Trust that truth does not need constant defense. Trust that character will speak in time. Allah honors this trust. In the end, Maintaining dignified silence is a form of worship. It protects the heart, preserves character, and strengthens reliance on Allah. It does not seek victory over people, but safety for the soul. And when silence is guided by faith and wisdom, you create distance without drama. Creating distance without drama is one of the most mature responses a believer can offer after being hurt. Many people believe distance must be loud, announced, or justified, but Islam teaches us that wisdom often moves quietly. When someone repeatedly causes pain, distance becomes protection, not punishment. You are not required to explain why you are stepping back, nor are you obligated to argue about your boundaries. Allah does not ask you to remain close to what harms your heart. Distance without drama preserves dignity. It avoids conflict while still honoring self-respect. The believer who chooses this path understands that peace is not found in confrontation, but in calm withdrawal. This choice prevents the heart from being pulled into unnecessary emotional storms. It allows healing to begin without creating new wounds. Distance, when chosen with wisdom, becomes a mercy for the soul. Drama feeds on reaction. It grows when emotions are displayed, words are exchanged, and blame is thrown back and forth. Islam protects the believer from this cycle by encouraging restraint. Creating distance without drama removes the fuel drama needs to survive. When you quietly step back, you deny chaos the attention it seeks. This quiet decision unsettles conflict because it cannot escalate without participation. The believer remains calm while the situation loses its grip. This calm is not avoidance, it is clarity. It reflects inner strength rooted in faith. Allah loves those who protect their peace without harming others in the process. Distance without drama reflects emotional intelligence guided by Iman. Creating distance also prevents regret. Loud exits often leave scars, words spoken in anger, accusations made in pain, bridges burned unnecessarily. Islam teaches us to leave situations with dignity intact. When you step away quietly, you preserve your character. Character matters more than being heard. Allah values how you conduct yourself even when wronged. Distance without drama ensures that your record remains clean. You leave without bitterness, insults, or blame. This protects both your conscience and your reputation. The believer walks away without carrying the weight of shame or second guessing. Distance without drama also protects relationships from permanent damage. Not every separation needs to be final or hostile. Sometimes space allows reflection, healing, and perspective. When distance is created calmly, doors remain open if Allah wills reconciliation later. Drama slams doors shut. Islam values reconciliation but never at the cost of self-harm. Distance without drama balances both. It allows space while maintaining respect. Even if reconciliation never occurs, the believer leaves with peace, not resentment. This peace is a gift from Allah to those who act wisely. The Prophet ﷺ demonstrated this wisdom repeatedly. When faced with hostility, he did not chase conflict. He stepped away when necessary and engaged when beneficial. His actions were measured, not emotional. This prophetic balance teaches us that distance is sometimes the most merciful response. Mercy toward others and mercy toward oneself can coexist. Creating distance without drama follows this prophetic path. It allows the believer to prioritize faith, growth, and purpose without being consumed by conflict. Distance without drama also preserves mental and emotional health. Constant engagement with hurtful people drains energy and disrupts focus. Islam values the believer's well-being because it supports worship. A disturbed heart struggles to pray with presence. Distance restores calm. Calm strengthens remembrance. Remembrance deepens faith. This chain begins when the believer chooses peace over participation in drama. Allah wants His servants emotionally stable, not constantly reactive. Distance supports this stability quietly and effectively. Some people may misinterpret quiet distance as arrogance or coldness. Islam teaches us not to live by people's assumptions. Allah judges intentions, not perceptions. When distance is chosen for peace, Allah records it as wisdom. The believer does not owe explanations for protecting their heart. This realization brings freedom. You stop managing others' opinions and start honoring Allah's guidance. That freedom is powerful. It allows the heart to move forward without carrying unnecessary emotional baggage. Creating distance without drama also teaches self-respect. You realize that not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your life. Islam encourages boundaries because boundaries preserve dignity. Distance enforces those boundaries gently. It does not attack, it protects. The believer becomes selective, not bitter. This selectivity strengthens emotional balance. Allah grants wisdom to those who protect themselves without harming others. Distance without drama reflects that wisdom clearly. Distance also shifts focus inward. Instead of obsessing over what others did wrong, the believer redirects attention toward growth, healing, and faith. This shift transforms pain into progress. Islam encourages believers to grow through hardship, not remain trapped in it. Distance creates the environment necessary for that growth. It removes distractions and allows reflection. Reflection brings understanding. Understanding brings peace. Peace strengthens Iman. When distance is created quietly, it often speaks louder than confrontation. People notice the absence without being attacked. This absence invites reflection rather than defensiveness. Allah uses the silence to teach lessons words never could. The believer does not need to prove anything. Their calm withdrawal becomes the message. This message is dignified and firm. Over time, creating distance without drama becomes a habit of wisdom. The believer learns when to step back and when to engage. This discernment protects faith and character. Life becomes calmer. Relationships become healthier. The heart becomes lighter. Allah blesses those who act with balance rather than extremes. In the end, creating distance without drama is an act of faith. It shows trust in Allah's justice, confidence in one's worth, and commitment to peace. It does not seek revenge or validation. It seeks protection of the heart. And when the believer chooses this path sincerely, Allah replaces conflict with calm and pain with strength that lasts. You focus on your growth, not their opinion. Focusing on your growth instead of people's opinions is one of the most liberating decisions a believer can make. Opinions change, moods shift, and perceptions are often incomplete. Growth, however, is built slowly through sincerity, patience, and effort. Islam teaches us that your journey is between you and Allah, not between you and the crowd. When someone hurts you, it is easy to become distracted by what they think, say, or assume. That distraction drains energy that could be invested in becoming better. By redirecting your attention toward growth, you reclaim that energy. You stop living in reaction mode and start living with intention. Allah values progress over popularity. He measures success by effort and faith, not by applause. When your focus returns to growth, your heart becomes calmer, your goals become clearer, and your faith becomes stronger. People's opinions often reflect their own fears, wounds, or misunderstandings. Islam teaches us not to internalize what was never meant for us. When you focus on growth, you stop carrying burdens that do not belong to you. You realize that being misunderstood does not block your progress. In fact, it often strengthens it. Growth thrives in silence, consistency, and patience. It does not need approval to continue. Allah sees the unseen effort, the quiet discipline, and the private struggles. This divine recognition is enough. When you accept that, people's opinions lose their grip. They become background noise rather than guiding voices. This shift brings emotional stability. You move forward without constantly checking who agrees or disagrees. That freedom allows growth to accelerate naturally. Focusing on growth also protects the heart from comparison. Opinions invite comparison, and comparison steals contentment. Islam teaches us to be content with what Allah has written for us. Contentment grows when attention stays inward, not outward. When you focus on growth, you measure yourself against yesterday, not against others. You ask whether you are improving in character, patience, and faith. This internal measurement strengthens Iman. Allah loves hearts that strive sincerely rather than hearts that compete for validation. Growth anchored in faith is steady and sustainable. It does not collapse under criticism because it was never built on praise. The Prophet ﷺ focused on growth and guidance, not on the opinions of his opponents. He faced criticism constantly, yet his mission never wavered. This prophetic example teaches us resilience. Growth requires resilience. It requires the ability to continue despite noise. When you follow this example, you stop defending your path and start walking it. Your actions become your response. Over time, consistency speaks louder than explanation. Allah opens doors for those who remain focused on becoming better rather than being liked. Focusing on growth also prevents emotional stagnation. When you obsess over opinions, you relive the hurt repeatedly. Growth moves you forward. Islam encourages forward motion. Even when pain is present, progress is possible. By choosing growth, you transform pain into fuel rather than an anchor. This transformation strengthens character. Allah loves when hardship leads to elevation rather than bitterness. Growth-centered hearts heal faster because they are not stuck replaying others' words. Growth requires discipline, and discipline thrives in privacy. Opinions often pressure the believer to perform rather than improve. When you ignore that pressure, your efforts become sincere. You work on yourself quietly, consistently, and patiently. Allah blesses this kind of effort. He multiplies it in ways people may never see. This unseen barakah builds confidence rooted in faith rather than approval. Confidence rooted in faith is stable. It does not shake when opinions change. When you focus on growth, your priorities become clearer. You invest time in worship, learning, and character development. Opinions become less urgent. You stop explaining yourself and start improving yourself. This redirection saves time and energy. Islam values time deeply. Growth honors time. Opinions waste it. By choosing growth, you respect the gift Allah gave you. This respect brings peace. Growth also refines perspective. You begin to see criticism as information rather than identity. You take what benefits and leave the rest. Islam teaches balance. Not every opinion is false, but not every opinion is necessary. Growth allows discernment. Discernment strengthens wisdom. Wisdom protects the heart. This protection allows you to continue growing without being distracted or discouraged. As growth continues, you notice emotional maturity increasing. You respond less and reflect more. You feel less compelled to correct misconceptions. Your inner world becomes richer and calmer. Allah grants tranquility to those who rely on Him rather than on people's acceptance. This tranquility supports worship and gratitude. Growth flourishes in this environment. Focusing on growth also aligns you with Allah's purpose for you. Opinions often pull you off course. Growth keeps you aligned. You move steadily toward what Allah wants you to become, not what people expect you to be. This alignment brings fulfillment. Fulfillment strengthens faith. Faith sustains growth through every season of life. Over time, people's opinions naturally fade in importance. Growth becomes the main concern. This shift simplifies life. Simplicity brings peace. Peace deepens trust in Allah. Trust stabilizes the heart. The believer becomes anchored rather than reactive. This anchoring is strength. In the end, focusing on your growth instead of their opinion is an act of worship. It honors Allah's guidance, protects the heart, and nurtures character. When growth becomes the priority, opinions lose power, pain loses control, and faith becomes the foundation that carries you forward with confidence and peace. You treat them with basic respect, not access. Islam teaches us a beautiful balance between kindness and boundaries. Treating someone with basic respect does not require granting them full access to your life. Respect is an obligation rooted in faith, but access is a privilege earned through trust and behavior. When someone hurts you, wisdom lies in maintaining manners without reopening doors that caused pain. You can speak politely, act with decency, and avoid hostility while still protecting your inner world. This balance preserves dignity on both sides. Allah does not command us to expose ourselves to harm in the name of kindness. He commands us to be just, measured, and wise. By offering respect without access, you remain faithful to Islamic values while honoring your emotional and spiritual safety. This approach allows peace to remain without inviting repeated wounds. Many people confuse access with mercy, believing that forgiveness requires closeness. Islam separates the two clearly. Forgiveness is an internal act of release, while access involves trust and safety. When trust is broken, wisdom requires caution. Treating someone with respect fulfills your moral duty, but limiting access fulfills your responsibility to protect your heart. This distinction prevents resentment from building beneath forced closeness. Allah loves when His servants forgive sincerely, but He also loves when they act wisely. You can forgive without reopening doors. This understanding frees the believer from guilt and confusion. It allows mercy to coexist with boundaries. Offering basic respect maintains character. Character is not conditional on how others behave. Even when hurt, the believer chooses courtesy over cruelty. This choice reflects inner strength. However, access requires vulnerability, and vulnerability should be given carefully. Islam values privacy and discernment. When someone repeatedly disrespects you, granting access may invite further harm. Limiting access is not punishment, it is protection. Allah values protection of the heart because the heart is the seat of faith. Respect keeps interactions clean and dignified, while boundaries keep the soul safe. Treating someone with respect without access also prevents emotional manipulation. Some people misuse closeness to control, criticize, or drain others. When access is limited, manipulation loses its power. The believer remains calm and composed, no longer pulled into emotional turmoil. Islam encourages emotional balance. This balance is achieved when kindness is paired with wisdom. You do not need to explain your boundaries or justify your distance. Consistent behavior communicates enough. Respectful distance sends a clear message without hostility. This clarity protects peace. The Prophet ﷺ demonstrated this balance repeatedly. He treated people with courtesy while remaining firm in his boundaries. He did not allow disrespect to dictate his behavior, nor did he grant closeness where harm existed. His example teaches us that respect does not mean tolerance of harm. It means maintaining values regardless of circumstances. Following this example strengthens faith. It allows the believer to act with confidence rather than guilt. Confidence rooted in faith is calm, not defensive. This calm preserves dignity. Treating someone with basic respect also keeps the door to reconciliation open without forcing it. Access can be restored if trust is rebuilt, but it should not be rushed. Islam values patience. Patience allows time to reveal sincerity. When access is limited respectfully, it encourages reflection rather than defensiveness. Drama closes doors. Respectful distance keeps them gently ajar. Even if reconciliation never occurs, the believer remains at peace knowing they acted with wisdom and mercy. Allah rewards intentions even when outcomes differ. This approach also protects the believer from bitterness. Cutting people off harshly often leaves anger unresolved. Maintaining respect softens the heart, while boundaries prevent further harm. This balance allows healing to occur gradually. Islam encourages healing without hatred. When you treat someone respectfully but limit access, you avoid internal conflict. Your actions align with your faith. This alignment brings peace. Peace strengthens worship. Worship strengthens reliance on Allah. Treating someone with respect without access teaches self-worth. You acknowledge that your presence is valuable and should not be given freely where it is not honored. Islam teaches dignity. Dignity is preserved when you do not beg for understanding or acceptance. You offer respect generously but guard access wisely. This self-worth is not arrogance. It is recognition of your value as a servant of Allah. Allah created you with honor. Protecting that honor is obedience, not pride. This behavior also simplifies life. You no longer struggle with whether to confront, explain, or justify. Your conduct becomes consistent. Consistency brings clarity. People learn what to expect without argument. Islam values clarity because it reduces conflict. When respect is shown and access is limited, confusion fades. The believer moves forward calmly. This calm supports emotional and spiritual growth. Respect without access also prevents the heart from reopening wounds unnecessarily. Each interaction is measured and intentional. This intention protects healing. Healing requires stability. Islam encourages stability because it supports Iman. When the heart feels safe, faith grows. Boundaries create that safety. Respect preserves character within those boundaries. Together, they form a strong foundation for peace. Over time, this approach strengthens emotional maturity. The believer becomes less reactive and more discerning. They no longer confuse kindness with availability. They understand that not everyone deserves proximity. This understanding brings wisdom. Allah grants wisdom to those who act with balance. Balance protects both dunya and akhirah. In the end, treating someone with basic respect but not granting access is a powerful act of faith. It honors Islamic manners while safeguarding the heart. It allows mercy without self-harm, forgiveness without vulnerability, and peace without conflict. When this balance is maintained sincerely, Allah fills the heart with clarity, strength, and a calm confidence that protects the soul through every season of life. You let Allah handle justice. Letting Allah handle justice is one of the hardest acts of faith, especially when the wound is deep and the injustice feels personal. The heart naturally wants fairness immediately. It wants acknowledgement, accountability, and relief. But Islam teaches us that human justice is limited, emotional, and often incomplete, while Allah's justice is perfect, precise, and never delayed without wisdom. When you let Allah handle justice, you release a burden that was never meant for your shoulders. You stop carrying anger, resentment, and the constant desire to prove your pain. Allah sees what others deny, hears what others twist, and knows what others hide. This knowledge alone should calm the heart. Trusting Allah with justice is not surrendering to oppression, it is surrendering to divine wisdom. And divine wisdom never fails the believer who relies on it sincerely. Many people exhaust themselves trying to correct every wrong done to them. They argue, confront, and replay the injustice repeatedly. This drains the soul. Islam offers a different path, tawakkul. When you let Allah handle justice, you step out of emotional warfare and step into peace. Allah does not forget injustice. Not a word, not a look, not a tear escapes His knowledge. When you trust this truth, the urgency to retaliate fades. You begin to understand that justice delayed is not justice denied. It is justice perfected. Allah's timing allows lessons to unfold, hearts to change, and consequences to align perfectly. Human intervention often disrupts this process. Faith allows it to complete. Letting Allah handle justice also protects your character. Revenge often disguises itself as justice, but it damages the soul. Islam prioritizes character over victory. When you refuse to retaliate, you preserve your dignity. You do not allow injustice to turn you into someone you are not. Allah values this restraint deeply. He elevates those who restrain themselves when wronged. That elevation may not be visible immediately, but it is recorded eternally. Character preserved for the sake of Allah is never lost. It becomes light on the day when light is needed most. Justice handled by Allah is free from emotion. Human justice is often fueled by anger, pride, or pain. Allah's justice is guided by truth alone. When you trust Allah, you remove emotion from the outcome. This protects you from regret. Words spoken in revenge cannot be taken back. Actions taken in anger cannot be undone. Allah's justice carries no regret. By letting Him handle it, you protect your future from the consequences of emotional decisions. Islam teaches foresight, not impulse. Letting Allah handle justice is foresight in its purest form. Sometimes Allah's justice comes as protection rather than punishment. He may remove harmful people from your life, expose hidden intentions, or redirect you to safer paths. These outcomes may not look like justice at first, but later they reveal mercy. The believer who trusts Allah learns to recognize justice in subtle forms. Not every wrongdoer needs to be confronted. Sometimes being spared from further harm is justice itself. Allah knows what you need more than what you want. Trusting Him allows acceptance of this reality. Letting Allah handle justice also brings emotional freedom. You stop replaying conversations. You stop imagining confrontations. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. This freedom is healing. Islam encourages the believer to live forward, not backward. When justice is handed to Allah, the heart becomes lighter. Healing accelerates because the mind is no longer stuck seeking closure from people. Allah provides closure through peace, not explanations. The Prophet ﷺ faced injustice greater than most of us can imagine. He was mocked, harmed and rejected. Yet he trusted Allah with justice. He did not chase revenge. He focused on guidance and mercy. Allah honored that trust by elevating his status beyond measure. This prophetic example teaches us that trusting Allah does not make you small, it makes you strong. Strength rooted in faith is steady and dignified. It does not shake under pressure. Letting Allah handle justice also strengthens Iman. It requires belief in Allah's attributes, Al-Adl, Al-Hakim, Al-Basir. When you truly believe Allah is just, wise and all-seeing, you can rest. Rest is an act of faith. It shows that you believe Allah is in control even when situations feel unfair. This belief calms anxiety and reduces bitterness. Bitterness harms the heart more than the injustice itself. Allah protects the hearts of those who rely on Him. Some fear that letting Allah handle justice means injustice will continue. Islam does not teach passivity in the face of harm, but it teaches balance. You may take lawful steps to protect yourself, set boundaries, and seek help where appropriate, but revenge and obsession are not justice. Trusting Allah means doing what is right and leaving outcomes to Him. This balance preserves both safety and faith. Allah does not burden you with outcomes, He burdens you with intention and effort. When justice is left with Allah, the believer's focus returns to growth. Energy once spent on anger is invested in healing, worship, and self-improvement. This redirection transforms pain into progress. Islam encourages believers to grow through trials. Trials handled with trust refine the soul. Allah raises the ranks of those who endure injustice with patience and dignity. That elevation is real even if unseen. Over time, you begin to see how Allah handled matters in ways you never could. Situations resolve, truth emerges, hearts change, or distance brings peace. Each outcome confirms that Allah's justice is wiser than human reaction. This realization deepens trust. Trust brings tranquility. Tranquility strengthens faith. This cycle is a gift for those who surrender justice to Allah. In the end, letting Allah handle justice is not weakness. It is worship. It is trusting the most just with what you cannot fix. It is choosing peace over poison and faith over fury. When you release justice to Allah, He replaces the weight of injustice with calm, clarity, and a strength that no revenge could ever give. You move forward peacefully. Moving forward peacefully is a powerful decision that transforms pain into strength. When someone hurts you, the heart may feel stuck, replaying the moment again and again. Islam teaches us that while pain may visit, it does not deserve permanent residence. Moving forward does not mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it control your future. Peaceful movement is an act of trust in Allah's wisdom. You accept that what has passed cannot be changed, but what lies ahead can be shaped with faith and patience. When you choose peace, you stop dragging yesterday's wounds into today's blessings. This choice lightens the heart and restores balance. Allah does not want His servants imprisoned by pain. He wants them walking toward healing, growth, and clarity. Moving forward peacefully allows the soul to breathe again. It opens space for gratitude, reflection, and hope. This is not denial. It is maturity guided by Iman. Moving forward peacefully requires releasing the need to settle every score. Islam teaches us that not every wrong must be corrected by us personally. Some matters are resolved by time, others by distance, and many by Allah alone. When you stop seeking emotional closure from people, peace becomes possible. You realize that your well-being does not depend on apologies or explanations. Allah's awareness of the situation is enough. This realization frees the heart from waiting. Waiting delays healing. Peaceful movement restores momentum. You continue building your life without carrying unnecessary weight. Allah blesses those who do not let injustice freeze them. He rewards those who rise with dignity and patience. Moving forward peacefully is choosing life over lingering pain. Peaceful movement also protects your faith. Lingering resentment hardens the heart and distracts from worship. Islam values a soft heart because a soft heart connects deeply with Allah. When you move forward peacefully, you protect that softness. You allow prayer to be sincere and remembrance to be calm. Anger clouds focus, but peace sharpens it. Allah loves when His servants choose serenity over chaos. This choice strengthens Iman. It keeps the heart aligned with divine purpose rather than personal battles. Moving forward peacefully is an act of obedience because it preserves the inner state Allah cares about most. Moving forward peacefully does not require public announcements or dramatic changes. Often it happens quietly. You stop revisiting old conversations. You stop checking for reactions. You stop measuring your worth by how others treated you. This quiet shift is powerful. Islam teaches us that real change begins within. When the heart changes direction, life follows. Peaceful movement happens step by step. Each step away from bitterness is a step closer to clarity. Allah guides those who take these steps sincerely. He replaces confusion with understanding and pain with patience. Choosing peace also restores self-respect. When you move forward without bitterness, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than the hurt. You are not defined by what happened to you, but by how you respond. Islam teaches dignity in response. Dignity is preserved when you do not beg for acknowledgement or dwell on harm. Peaceful movement honors your worth as a servant of Allah. It reflects confidence rooted in faith, not arrogance. This confidence calms the heart and steadies the soul. Moving forward peacefully allows healing to unfold naturally. Healing cannot happen while the heart remains stuck in resistance. Islam encourages acceptance of what cannot be changed. Acceptance is not approval. It is surrender to Allah's decree. This surrender softens pain. Over time, what once felt heavy becomes manageable. The believer realizes that Allah replaces what was lost with something better, sometimes unseen. Peaceful movement allows space for this replacement to arrive. Allah's gifts often come quietly, not forcefully. A heart at peace can receive them. Peaceful movement also reshapes perspective. You begin to see lessons instead of losses. Islam teaches us that every trial carries wisdom. When you move forward, that wisdom becomes clearer. You recognize growth in patience, boundaries, and faith. This recognition strengthens gratitude. Gratitude attracts barakah. Barakah stabilizes life. This chain begins when you choose peace over resistance. Allah loves grateful hearts, especially those that remain grateful despite pain. Moving forward peacefully protects your energy. Emotional energy is precious. Islam teaches us to use it wisely. Dwelling on hurt drains energy that could be invested in worship, learning, and self-improvement. When you move forward, you reclaim that energy. You redirect it toward what benefits you in this life and the next. Allah rewards those who prioritize benefit over bitterness. This redirection transforms pain into purpose. Peaceful movement also influences others positively. When people see you calm rather than reactive, dignified rather than bitter, it unsettles expectations. Islam teaches us to lead by example. Your peace becomes a quiet reminder that strength does not need noise. This influence is not intentional, it is natural. Allah uses your calm to teach lessons beyond words. Even if others never admit it, your peace speaks. Moving forward peacefully aligns you with Allah's timing. Rushing healing often delays it. Islam teaches patience because patience respects divine timing. When you move forward calmly, you allow Allah to unfold His plan without interference. This trust deepens faith. Faith reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety improves peace. This cycle strengthens the believer internally. As time passes, the pain loses its sharpness. You notice moments of calm where pain once dominated. This is a sign that peace is taking root. Islam encourages us to notice these signs as mercy. Allah gently heals hearts that trust Him. Moving forward peacefully allows this healing to continue without interruption. In the end, moving forward peacefully is a declaration of trust in Allah. It is choosing faith over fixation, growth over grievance, and calm over chaos. When you move forward with peace, you do not erase the past, you rise above it. And Allah, seeing this sincerity, replaces what hurt you with strength, clarity, and a peace that carries you forward with confidence and light. My dear brothers and sisters, true strength is not found in proving a point or winning an argument. It is found